Greetings. This short yin yoga sequence will consist of 4 forward folding postures, both sides of butterfly pose, caterpillar pose, and snail pose. We'll reside in the postures for roughly 3 minutes per posture. Since this is an intensely focused practice on forward folding, I consider it an intermediate practice, which may be inappropriate for someone who doesn't have a lot of experience with posture yoga practice or a yin practice. Standard props can be helpful, so blankets and pillows, and if you have a yoga bolster, that could come in handy, and some blocks could come in handy for some of the modifications and options during this practice. So gather up your props, decide if forward folding practice is appropriate for you, and for some people it's not, then we'll go ahead and get started. A little bit of a warm-up before we get started with the yin postures. So some cat and cow rolling. Make your way to hands and knees here, and take some time to rearrange your hands and your knees so you make a nice stable table with a nice neutral spine. So the emphasis on this little warm-up exercise will be on cow pose, which is the back bend, since we'll do a fair amount of forward bending in the yin section here. So for cow pose, sink your belly forward down towards the ground. You're tipping your tailbone up, and you're kind of moving your sternum forward here. And you can look up if you want to, but if that's too strainful on your neck, you can just keep your head neutral and spend a breath or two here in cow pose in this back bend. It's almost a pre-counter pose to all the forward folds here. And then when you're ready, maybe slowly bring yourself into cat, or if you want to, skip cat and just come back to table. So either a nice neutral spine here, or a very gentle and easy cat pose. So cat is actually a forward fold in and of itself, and you can do full cat pose if you like, or you can skip it and just maybe do a series of cow to table poses. So come back to cow here for a breath, and then maybe just cycle through cow and table pose. So maybe call this cow rolling, in that we're not going to do an extreme cat pose, but just come back into a back bend and then a nice neutral spine. You can do cat if you feel like that's a good idea here. But we will get into the forward folds as soon as we get done here with just kind of settling ourselves down into this sequence. So maybe one more cycle of cow rolling or cat and cow pose here. And then at some point, go ahead and get settled into the first yin posture, which will be the first side of half butterfly pose. So for half butterfly, come to seated, and if you have a lot of tightness in your legs or in your low back, like a lot of us do, then you might want to sit up on a little bit of height. I've got a blanket, but maybe you want a bolster, or maybe you want a block to sit up on here. Legs are extended out front, and then slowly bring yourself into butterfly. So I normally cue butterfly like this. So bend the left knee, lower the left knee out to the left, draw the left heel in towards your hip slowly until you reach a stopping point. So you're going by feel here, and maybe it's the knee that tells you to stop, or maybe the heel hits your hip if you're really flexible in the knee. But you're finding your stopping point, and if the knee feels unstable because it's floating, you can always put something underneath that leg to keep it stabilized here. Normally, I keep this right leg straight out in front of me, and I kind of cue people to fold forward over that right leg. If you love that version, then that's the version you should be doing. Otherwise, I'm going to recommend a modified version of half butterfly. Bring the right leg over out to the right, maybe the foot out a foot or so. So it's kind of out of the way here. Find a good edge for you for this posture, and then grow up long through your spine for a moment. So this takes a little bit of yang engagement in the core. just to bring the spine nice and neutral initially. And then for the yin part, you'll hinge and then release and round forward any amount here. So this is the first forward fold. We're getting in a mild hip opener here with the half butterfly pose here. And it doesn't matter how far you fold. And if you didn't like the right leg position, you can move it back. This knee and this leg can be bent here. If you didn't fold forward very far and you need some stability, this is where I like a firm bolster. Is like, maybe for some of us, this is just as far as we go, and we would like some support. So you can take the bolster and you can rest your head on the bolster to help you out. Maybe you go a little bit farther forward and you're still feeling a little bit unstable. You'd still like something for your head to rest on. So this is where other yoga props come in handy. Maybe some blocks a little bit lower would feel good. This is where we're going to stay for a couple more minutes. So, or you can hang in midair like I'm doing, if that feels fine. Your head and your neck are released, and you're trying to relax the muscle fiber in your torso to round your spine so that you're in a rounded forward fold, to kind of stretch out all the connective tissue in the back side of the body. And you might lightly compress some of the tissue in the front side of the body. So the three principles of yin again are, first principle is find your edge. This is kind of the art to yin yoga, is finding your shape that your body needs to make here, where it stops and you start to feel some sensations at your edge. And it's not painful, it's not creating injury or trauma, it's just that place where you feel resistance and stuckness, and maybe your word for it is discomfort. But in time, you'll realize it's just sensation from the tension or the compression on the tissues here. Then second principle is stillness, and that just means you decide to stay for a while here. That's what requires the mental focus of patience. And then finally, in yin, the idea is the fourth dimension besides the three-dimensional shape of the posture is time. Time being, so we're working with space-time in this, and we're staying here for maybe another little over a minute here in this posture. Again, we're going for roughly 3 minutes per forward fold, and this is the first one. Notice how you're feeling, notice how you're breathing here. Allow yourself to settle and to stay, or come out if you're finding this too intense. By the way, if you're finding this too intense already, I would say you have to seriously think about skipping the rest of the yin sequence this time. Forward folds are powerful. In fact, they're very powerful in yin. The longer you stay in them, the more you feel them here, particularly if you're allowing yourself to relax your muscle and let yourself sink. When I watch people in forward folds like this, particularly quote-unquote stiff people, you start out pretty high, and then with time you begin to sink lower and lower and lower, and you may not notice it yourself, but another pair of eyes like me as the instructor will notice that you've actually sunk down a few more inches after a couple of minutes here. So we'll maybe stay here for 4 more kind of slow, gentle breaths here. And then just notice where you are. Remember, this doesn't have to be that intense. You don't want to take an intense version because we've got 3 more forward folds after this. So this is a good time to just pay attention how things are feeling now. And if they're not feeling good now, they're not going to feel better with time. The forward folds are actually going to get more intense with time, and that's something to think about. So 1 more breath here. And then when you're ready, slowly bring yourself up. You can use your hands and your arms to help get your torso back up. And if there's any achiness in the torso, work it out with some kind of motion in the spine that's not a forward fold. So nice neutralizing things are light twists. You can even do a light back bend. Maybe lateral bends feel nice. But we'll go ahead and get set up for the other side of the half butterfly pose. So bring that left knee up, extend the left knee out, bring both legs back out in front of you here. We'll start from kind of this neutral position and then build this pose on the other side. So now it's the other knee that bends. Lower the other knee up to the side. Slowly draw the heel in as you need to until you find your stopping point. And again, give yourself permission to support this knee if it needs support. Again, you can keep this left leg out straight, or you can bring it out wide, which is what I'm suggesting, because I normally cue this posture with the leg out in front, but there's lots of different variations of half butterfly, and I'm suggesting, how about the variation with the leg out to the side so that you kind of forward fold this way again here. So when you're ready, then go ahead and fold forward again here. Any amount, and you can use any props that you want. By the way, if your torso needs support, you can build, if you have enough blocks. I call this the Lego part of a Yin class. You can just kind of use props to create a tower of support here, if that helps with any achiness here. And then we'll stay here another 3 minutes or so in this forward fold. So the idea here is to really pay attention. So when you get into your shape and you find your edge and you're residing here now, your breath is often a good indication of what's going on, and if it's doesn't necessarily mean anything's wrong, but you can definitely tell how intense a pose is. We'll get to a posture later here called Snail. It's very intense for me, and my breath gets really short. Now there's nothing wrong, but it's telling me that it's a really intense posture for me. So your breath is an indication of how things are going in the pose. But your other physical sensation, is there sharp, biting, burning pain somewhere that needs to be taken care of with a modification, or with maybe bringing yourself up a bit? Maybe the sharp, biting, burning pain is in your torso somewhere because this is too intense. Maybe in the spine or along some of the tissues here. It might not be in the spine at all. Maybe it's up in the neck. Maybe it's down in the legs. Maybe there's a knee or an ankle. And so you're trying to notice that. This is part of the observation that you're doing with your mental focus while you're in a posture. Meanwhile, you're trying to keep the muscles in your torso relaxed so that you can just simply continue to ooze in this posture. Again, if this is the second of 4 forward folds that we're going to be doing, so if this is already getting intense, really, really intense to the point of pain, then some options to consider is to come out and rest, get ready for the next posture, back up, find a modification here. So we have about 1 more minute that I'm going to stay in the posture. You don't always have to stay in the posture. You can come out early. 1 or 2 minutes is a good start here for these postures. The only problem is you'll have to just wait for the next posture if you're only holding for 1 minute, or fast forward the video, just skip part of the video. It means you have to get up and go over and play with the video to get it where you want it here. Otherwise, it's just a practice of staying here. Listen to the sounds around you. There's a light thunderstorm outside my window now, so if you're hearing thunder, it might be coming from the video here. So just one more breath here on this side. And then slowly begin to bring yourself up. Slowly here. So it's the rebound. In fact, sometimes you can think of the fourth mechanic or the fourth principle of Yin Yoga is coming out of the Yin posture slowly and trying to notice the little imbalances and kinks and reverberations that occur. And if you're doing a lot of one type of posture like we are in this sequence, you're probably going to start feeling the reverberation, the achiness that happens in the low back. So it's a good idea. You can try little counter postures. I might suggest a yang counter pose called reverse table, just to do before we get into the next forward fold. And reverse table is sitting on the floor, bend your knees, put your feet on the floor, about hip width apart, hands behind you with maybe the fingers pointing away from you. And then on an inhale, root through your hands and your feet and then lift your torso up as high as your hips and your torso up as high as they will go here. And then slowly lower them back down. This is a core exercise. So maybe a few more times. And maybe try to go fairly slow in that instead of super speed, kind of the speed I'm going at here, and just notice, just to wake up the core after those forward folds here. And then any other kind of like wiggling you'd like to do here before we get set up for our next posture. Our next posture is caterpillar pose. So again, caterpillar pose now is forward folding with both legs straight out in front. Or I should say extended out in front. And again, you may not need to use any props for this posture. Or if you're someone with a lot of tightness in the backs of your legs or in your back, then maybe a little bit of height. Notice that I'm now sitting up on 2 blankets myself. Maybe you need that much height, maybe not. So you need to experiment here. So for caterpillar, kind of making a nice L shape to begin with. This is a little bit yang to make this L shape. And then for caterpillar, just simply fold forward with both legs extended out in front. They don't have to be straight. For some of you, they will be. They can have a deep bend in them if they need to mitigate the stress and strain that you're feeling in the back of the legs if you're feeling it. And then fold forward any amount to where you stop here. And again, you can use props to kind of support your torso if that helps with the achiness here. You can also put the props underneath your knees to make sure they stay bent here. And then stay here. You can release the muscles in your legs and let your legs, like my legs are externally rotated. So if I really release the muscles, they go out to the sides here. But I want some of the tension of this posture to go into the bottom backs of my legs. So in order to keep them straight, I make props out of my arms. And I go up and I press my arms against my legs to kind of keep them from folding out without having to engage muscles in the legs here. So this is my personal version of caterpillar pose, in that I'm using my arms, I'm using the placement of my arms to kind of keep my legs from folding out, but relax, but so that the muscles in my legs can relax, so that the tension I feel in my legs is going into kind of the fascia in the connective tissue here. And then this is where we can stay for another 2.5 minutes or so. Now for some of us, this is beyond agonizing here. Caterpillar looks pretty simple and easy, but for a lot of us folks, this is too intense of a posture. There's there might be some pain going on in the legs. If that's the case, turn this posture into butterfly pose. And for butterfly pose, you'll bend your knees, put the bottoms of your feet together, lower the knees outside. Now you've released the tension in the legs here. And then go ahead and fold and round forward here in butterfly pose here. So this is a nice option if caterpillar is a little bit too intense here. Otherwise, if you're really liking caterpillar, then just stay in caterpillar here. Once again, this is an experiment. This is an observation. You're trying to figure out how this posture feels, and noticing if it occurs to you if there's something small that you could do to make this posture a lot more accessible. Things like sitting up on blankets, things like using props, things like maybe not using props if you're using too many of them and some of them are not very useful to you. Noticing your breath, and noticing the sensations in all of your body. By the way, there's really no such thing as a specified specific area of the body yoga posture. All yoga postures are full body postures. And so you can notice sensations that are up in your head and your neck, down in your toes, maybe in your arms or your shoulders. If you really released and are relaxing the muscles in your torso, you can maybe feel the tension. Like I said, these forward folds are powerful because when we really relax the muscles and let the traction and the tension seep into the spine, into the connective tissue that runs through our torso, it's pretty achy. And you often feel that in these forward folds. So just a couple more breaths here. Maybe you can sink a little bit more deeper if you're still in the posture. Maybe it's time to come out. It is kind of time for all of us to come out here. So slowly bring yourself up. Slowly being the operative word here. Oh, if there's some rebound there, again, a little bit of free-form yoga. So your body might be craving a movement. And again, if you don't even have an idea what the movement is, then work the spine in all the other directions except for a forward fold. So back bends, little gentle lateral bends and twists, just to see what might work here. So I'll offer another counter pose for this forward fold, and it'll be kind of a core engaging lateral bend. So you'll come onto all fours here, just like we did for cat and cow here. From here, lengthen out through your right leg. Right toes are pressing onto the ground. And then lift the right leg up. Swing the right leg over to the left and then set the right foot down on the other side, on the left side of the left foot here. And then begin to look around with your head towards that right foot that's now on the left side. So by doing, and you use your whole torso, your head, your neck, and your torso to kind of bend and look around at that foot. So you're creating a lateral bend by doing this here. Maybe hold for a breath and then bring yourself back to center. Bring the leg back around, set the leg down, root through that right knee, and then extend the left leg out. Lift the left leg up. Swing the left leg around over to the right side of the right foot. And then use your torso, your shoulders, your neck, and your head to look around at that back, or try to look at that back foot. And then feel the lateral bend that you've created here. Just one more breath here, and then bring yourself back to center. And then we'll set up for the last forward fold yin posture, which will be snail. And snail is one of those poses that's not for everyone. It's a very intense pose for me. I'm going to need a little bit of padding here for snail. There'll be an alternative for snail, and the alternative will be dragonfly, but I'll demonstrate snail first here. So you'll make your way onto your back. And I've got some padding right underneath my upper torso, because that's where a lot of the pressure is. That's into the floor. And then, so my head is off of the extra padding, but you'll have to determine where you want extra padding or if you even need extra padding. Oh yeah, one little detail here. This will work a little bit better, be a little bit more comfortable for my head down. So if you're lying on the floor now for snail pose, you'll actually lift your legs and your hips up and over your torso and your head here. So you use your arms are extended, palms face down. And then legs go up and over. Legs don't have to be straight. This is not plow pose, this is snail pose. So you can allow the legs to just bend as much as they want to. Feet can just hang in the air, or maybe the feet make it to the floor here. The idea here is this is probably the most powerful forward fold in Yin Yoga here. Now you have to be able to breathe. If you can't breathe, it's not yoga here. One of the things that I have to look after is to make sure that this sometimes cuts off my trachea, and I simply can't breathe here. But if I kind of rearrange things, I could get to a point where I can breathe. I might not be able to talk very well. So if you get yourself into this shape, and this is maybe intense, but it feels okay, this is snail. And then you can stay here for however long. We'll try to go for 3 minutes here, but maybe 1 or 2 feels good here. In the meantime, I'll go ahead and demonstrate Dragonfly, just so that I can do something to where I can still talk here. So for Dragonfly is just a forward fold with legs out wide rather than legs together. And if you have a lot of tightness in your legs again, you might want to sit up on some height. I'll demonstrate sitting up on a block this time, because I like doing that for Dragonfly. So legs extended, and then they go out wide here. And then you can just simply forward fold any amount between the legs here. So this is a nice alternative. It's another forward fold, but it's a good hip opener. But it's a regular seated forward fold, so it may not be as intense as snail. So this is again a good alternative to snail if you're finding that this forward fold sequence is getting to be a little bit much. Otherwise, if you're finding snail to be fine, we'll spend another 2 minutes or so in snail or in Dragonfly. So those are your choices here. Or you might be just done with forward folding, in which case then some counter poses or some Savasana might be in order here. So in more traditional practices, like in Taoist yoga or in traditional yoga, there's some energy channels that run up on either side of your spine. So this is a little bit of subtle energy theory. And it's interesting because those energy channels are considered to be activated in forward folds. In Taoism, those are the urinary bladder channels, which are considered some of the most important energy channels in the body. In yoga yoga traditions that come from India, that's the Ida and Pingala nadis that are the urinary bladder channels, and they're also considered some of the most important energy channels in the body. So if you subscribe to those energy channels, no matter what theory you subscribe to, forward folds are considered important and powerful in all of those traditions here. So we'll stay here for 2 more breaths. And then when you're ready to come out, take your time. I know I have to. So you don't have to come out of the forward fold quickly. You can slowly unroll out of Snail Pose. Or if you're in Dragonfly, slowly lift your torso up here. And from here, a little bit of a twist before we end this practice here. So, lying on your back, bend your knees and draw your knees into your chest. This is actually another form of a forward fold, but we're going to try a twist here. So with both knees bent in towards your chest, slowly lower your knees over to one side and your opposite shoulder over to the other side to create a twist in your spine. Here, arms come out in T or cactus arm position. Maybe stay here for a breath or two. And then inhale, bring your knees back up to center. Slowly lower them over to the opposite side. Get a nice twist in the torso. The other side, a couple more breaths here. Just to kind of release. Maybe on the next inhale, bring your knees back up to center. A little bit of free-form yoga now. So you can either come slowly to sitting, so you roll over to one side, come to sitting, and as you're coming up, if you can think of some other kind of gentle movement that will work out the reverberation, the reaction from all those forward folds. Maybe do that for a while. You can also do other kind of integrative poses. You can take a longer Savasana, but I'll end here and just wish you a very good day. So the universe is ecstatically joyful that you are here. Namaste.